See News at 10 on Fox 21.
Welcome to the news here at 10. I'm Todd Carley in for Chris Weimer on Fox 21. It is cold all over the place. We'll get to that in just a moment, but we begin tonight topping your 10 at 10 with a fire in the Bronx, New York. It broke out this evening in New York City and left 6 people dead. That fire started in the Belmont section of the Bronx on the 3rd floor of a 5-story building. The blaze went from 3 alarms and later to 4. The fire department said 15 were hurt. 12 of them are in critical condition tonight. One of the deadliest fires in recent memory happened elsewhere in the Bronx in 2007 due to a spark from a space heater, and it is bitterly cold tonight in New York as well. The mayor is planning to head to that scene tonight. Now here on Delmarva in Kent County, the state fire marshal's office has not yet identified a cause for a house fire near Lincoln today that killed 1 person. 6 people are homeless after that fire in Sussex County. A neighbor, Tina Daniels, says that fire overcame that house quickly.
I didn't think nothing at first, but then when I saw, like I said, it was pretty big. The fire was big, and our neighbor was already over there trying to get the fire under control with his fire extinguisher. So
investigators with the fire marshal's office were on scene of that today trying to figure out what caused that fire there, in which 1 person was killed. By the way, that person has not been identified by authorities as of tonight. As these temps go down, carbon monoxide emergencies are going up. Also up are carbon monoxide detector sales. Businesses say each year they see more people buy alarms as they begin to heat their houses. That's a good sign. The Dorchester County Emergency Services Director says they've only seen 6 cases in the county now over the last 3 years.
Absolutely. We certainly see a spike. Dorchester County doesn't see a whole lot, but across the state we see a big spike during the winter months.
And Dorchester County first responders say it is best to test those detectors once every year. All right, speaking of temperatures, it's not getting any better anytime soon. Dan is standing by in the Storm Tracker Weather Center with how it looks right now, what we can expect for the next couple of days. Dan?
Well, Todd, you know, there's that major fire up in New York right now. The temperature up there, 13 degrees. It's actually colder here on Delmarva, at least in some areas. Salisbury down to 12. Radar right now is clear. Skies are also clear. See the cold air draining across the continent out into the Atlantic and picking up some cloud cover. 13 in New York, Boston down to 7. In Ottawa and at Gatineau in Quebec, it's now 17 below zero, 12 in Salisbury, 11 in Delmar, 14 in Dover, and 17 at Wallops Island. I have revised our lows tonight down now to between 7 and 14 in most areas, maybe a little bit above that in parts of southern Accomack County. We will get to freezing tomorrow, maybe a degree above, but that's just because another surge of cold air is coming in and the winds will turn to the west ahead of it. The weekend will be quite cold. More on that coming up.
All right, Dan, thanks. You mentioned the cold weather all around the east here. Let's get to that in a little more detail. Frostbite warnings are in effect for much of the country. The Arctic blast extends from the northern plains to New England, even dipping the mercury down south. Forecasters warn 70% of the country could be below the freezing mark on New Year's Day. Roxana Saberi now reports from New York.
The big chill is closing in on a good portion of the United States.
It's just brutal. We're going to be talking about this cold for days, if not weeks.
People are layering up before heading out.
Top on thermal, 2 sweaters. I have a turtleneck, 2 pair of gloves.
At the Mount Washington Observatory in New Hampshire, boiling water instantly turned to ice crystals thanks to an air temperature of negative 34 degrees. Maine's Rockport Harbor is freezing over for the first time in years.
Salt water doesn't freeze too easily, so to see something semi-frozen over, you know it's cold.
The town of Lowville, New York, dug out of the snow during a peak temperature of 0 on Thursday. But some of our furry friends feel right at home. So does 10-year-old Thomas Canfield after a few runs on the slopes.
I need to take this stuff off. I'm so hot.
These are also prime conditions for the Shipshewana Ice Festival in Indiana.
We're below 10 degrees. It's overcast. This is absolutely perfect.
South Carolina's Department of Transportation has crews working 12-hour shifts, pre-treating bridges which could freeze overnight. Even Georgia has trucks on standby if Old Man Winter reaches that far south. Brutal temps are also affecting New Year's plans. Philadelphia is considering canceling its annual Mummers Day parade. And revelers in New York's Times Square could feel temperatures in the single digits when the ball drops at midnight. Roxana Saberi, CBS News, New York.
The Division of Public Health has announced the second flu-related death of the season in Delaware. An 83-year-old Newcastle County woman passed away last week. She did have multiple underlying health conditions and was a resident of a long-term care facility. The CDC says flu activity has increased now in the last few weeks, and the first state is seeing more flu activity this season than it did at this time last year. As of Friday, Delaware now has recorded 129 confirmed flu cases. 49 of those required hospitalization. The DPH continues to encourage people to get the flu vaccine as well as to seek medical care at the first signs of that illness. Looking to better protect dogs in Wicomico County from the cold. That is the goal of the Wicomico County Humane Society. They say many people assume that dogs are fine outside because of their coats, but while the fur helps, they say dogs are just as affected by extreme weather as people are. That's why they're looking to make changes to a dog ordinance that will protect them from being tethered outside on cold days like today. Some of those changes include a 30-minute time limit to tethering. The County Council will discuss that ordinance at their next meeting scheduled for January 2nd in Wicomico County. President Trump was back at his golf club in Palm Beach today. Yesterday, he made his first public appearance during his Florida holiday vacation. The president visited a firehouse where he talked about his first-year achievements. Here's Mola Lenghi.
What's happening? Because we want to give these people credit for the great job they do. So thank you all very much.
President Trump visited firefighters in West Palm Beach Wednesday afternoon, thanking them for their service. He also paused to pat himself on the back.
The country is really, it's a big, big, beautiful ship that we're turning around. We have signed more legislation than anybody. We broke the record of Harry Truman.
A CBS News analysis shows the president has signed more than 90 bills into law since he took office. That number is hundreds fewer than the nearly 700 pieces of legislation that one bill tracking website counts as signed by President Kennedy during the same period. President Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush also signed more than 200 bills into law during the same time. Mr. Trump also took to Twitter, taking credit for an 83% increase in arrests for members of the MS-13 gang and reducing the number of ISIS fighters from 35,000 to 1,000 since he took office.
Fresh off his legislative tax victory, President Trump plans to hold a strategy session with Republican congressional leaders at Camp David the first weekend in January.
Spokesmen for both Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Speaker Paul Ryan confirmed they will attend. The president is hoping to notch more legislative achievements leading up to the midterm elections. Lawmakers face a number of issues when they return to Washington, ranging from immigration to the budget. Mola Lenghi, CBS News, the White House.
The Trump administration is repealing now a rule that would have set standards for fracking on federal land. It was passed 2 years ago to address environmental concerns related to hydraulic fracturing. Companies would have been required to disclose the chemicals they use in fracking and take a number of safety steps. But the Interior Department says the rule would be an unnecessary burden that would hold back oil and gas development. TSA officials say they are catching a record number of guns at BWI Airport in Baltimore. They say they have caught 25 so far this year. That's 12 more than the record in 2013. Police there say a man stopped at BWI just this week is now facing criminal charges. And some passengers say despite the growing numbers at BWI and nationally, it's a risk you have to take if you choose air travel.
Gotta take your chances, I suppose, if you want to get somewhere by air.
TSA intercepts thousands of guns every year across the country. Most of them are loaded. Now, it's not illegal to pack a gun, but it has to be unloaded and in your checked luggage. On top of criminal charges, TSA can choose to pursue civil cases as well. The fines for that are potentially in the thousands of dollars. The family of an Alabama teenager who ended up with brain trauma after dealing with police is looking for answers. An image of 17-year-old Ulysses Wilkerson, posted by his mother, has since been shared 61,000 times. Many of those who shared the Facebook post said they were outraged. Wilkerson's father says people from all over the world are condemning that they want justice.
He had trauma trauma to the brain, swelling on the brain, and a cracked eye socket in 3 different places. From all over the world, people comment. They want justice.
It's alleged that officers saw Wilkerson coming around the corner of a building in downtown Troy, Alabama, when they tried to speak to him. He took off, prompting a foot chase. One witness said she saw officers surrounding Wilkerson, who appeared to be unconscious. Over 80 workers from a Virginia power company will soon be headed for Puerto Rico as part of the effort to restore power after Hurricane Maria. 82 Dominion Energy restoration workers will be among 1,500 power company employees deploying in January. Officials say the new wave will bring the total number of power restoration workers to more than 5,500. The workers are expected to be there at least a month. It has been 3 months now since Maria ravaged that island. At least 34% of that island is still in the dark. Hundreds of women from various Palestinian cities marched in protest of President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The protests follow a recent crackdown on Palestinian demonstrations. At least 6 Palestinians have been killed, over 360 wounded since Trump's announcements. That announcement delighted Israeli officials but was condemned by Palestinian leaders. Well, that wraps up our 10 at 10 here tonight, but a lot more news, sports, and yes, weather coming up. Looking for last-minute jewelry gifts for the holidays? You might want to shop carefully. And while job hunting can be a struggle we all go through, the start of the new year can bring some new hope. WBOC News at 10 will continue right after this.